Air Force One returns to the channel today following developments from Boeing after they released their quarterly results within the aviation industry. If you've been watching the channel, you'll know that Air Force One was the catalyst for the brunt of the problems as they look towards building the new aircraft for the President of the United States. The American aircraft manufacturer added a $660 million USD additional charge on developments for the two aircraft. The CEO of Boeing also essentially announced that he openly regretted the decision taken by Boeing to develop the US presidential aircraft. Back in 2016, it was very tentatively agreed that the price for replacing the existing Air Force One aircraft would not go over the $4 billion USD mark, but now they have. For Boeing now, with the development of these aircraft, they've noted that they're facing increasingly higher supply costs than initially expected, which does come down to the technical requirements they're facing, which are overall more complex, as well as several schedule delays that are throwing their plans and timeline entirely out of whack. The global pandemic also meant progress on the planes was halted to the extent that caused them to pay more and more for supplies, labour and more as shortages were experienced, although not just for the two Air Force One aircraft, but for many aircraft programs, there were many supply issues. But given the nature of this highly sophisticated aircraft that is being produced, you can imagine that these parts are even more crucial, and there are many more, giving it that insane price quote of over $4 billion. Progress was also just generally moving at snail's pace. Of course, if production isn't going according to plan at the best of times, this does mean that further costs will be naturally incurred. The current Boeing chief executive officer, who might I add, when this contract was initially signed, was not the CEO. He was quoted by reporters at the earnings call discussing the latest quarterly results, saying that Air Force One is unique, and this is from the negotiating to Boeing's general risks that they've obtained by signing the contract. He believes that these risks were not ultimately worth the reward, and they probably should never have opted to take the agreement, as it was probably the wrong decision. However, this does not mean that they are not committed to finishing the planes. That means they will not be just throwing away the contract. They are eventually going to be delivering them, and that's given all the problems they've incurred. They probably want to finish this and say goodbye to the program. However, it's going to be costly, and this is something the Boeing CEO has said they need to be made aware of, and they just have to accept. They are still many years away from an eventual delivery. The latest estimates by the Pentagon note that these two highly modified 747-8s should arrive by just after the midway point of this decade, so around 2026. What is worth noting is this is 2 years later than initially expected, and what was signed for in the almost $4 billion USD contract back in 2018, which quoted 2024 as a delivery date. Although with these types of things, they're always estimates. The Boeing 777X, for example, was meant to enter into service in 2020. Now it's going to be 2025. Airbus aircraft have gone through the same thing, so there's always room for that to change. Although this is to be expected, it's still not ideal for the aircraft manufacturer battling so many other exterior difficulties with other aircraft programs. What are your thoughts? Do you think Boeing should have taken the contract for the aircraft to begin with? Do let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. I appreciate all the support, and I will see you next time.